Welcome to the Handed Down Kitchen, where we bring recipes out of the past and back into the kitchen. It's 1970s week, and today we're bringing you a recipe for a treat that was invented in the decade. Since they were first baked, these cakes have become a staple in bakeries and coffee shops. Then known as caramel cakes or caramel slices, today they're usually called Millionaires Shortbreads. We found this recipe in the Cakes and Baking chapter of our copy of the Complete Colour Cookbook, which was published in 1977. And if you've got a sweet tooth like us, you'll absolutely love this one. In the same year this recipe was published, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope was released, and for the first time ever the number of colour television licenses exceeded black and white ones in the UK. So to make these you will need the following ingredients. For the biscuit base you will need 150 grams of butter, 100 grams of caster sugar, and 275 grams of plain flour. And then for the caramel filling you will need 100 grams of butter, 100 grams of caster sugar, 1 can of condensed milk, and 2 tablespoonfuls of golden syrup. And finally, for the topping you will need 100 grams of plain chocolate. The first thing to do is to make the biscuit base, so start by creaming together your butter and your sugar. This is always a lot easier to do when your butter is soft, so make sure it's not too cold before you start this. As you can see, our butter was pretty cold. We ended up putting it next to the fireplace for a little while to melt. Pour in the flour and mix together with your spoon until the mixture starts coming together as crumbs. Once everything's blended, get your hands in there and squeeze everything together just to make sure that everything is fully combined. It won't come together completely, it will stay crumbly, and that is just how you want it. Pour your biscuit crumbs into a tin that's either greased or coated with baking paper like our one, and just even out the crumbs loosely across it. Then press the crumbs firmly into the tin, making sure you get right into all of the corners and the edges. And then transfer this to bake in an oven set to 180 degrees Celsius for 10 to 15 minutes until lightly golden. Ours took 15 minutes altogether. Leave your biscuit base to cool, and while you wait, make the caramel layer. Start by setting a pan over a low heat and melt in the remaining 100 grams of butter. Pour in the remaining 100 grams of caster sugar and stir in. Add in the 2 tablespoonfuls of golden syrup and stir again. And finally pour in the condensed milk. The recipe we're using is a little confusing when it comes to the condensed milk. It says to use 1 large tin, the equivalent of 1 1/4 pints of milk, and that's pretty hard to convert to grams, which is the measurement on our tin. We used a whole 390 gram tin of condensed milk, and that worked just fine for us. So stir these together until the sugar dissolves and it begins to boil, and then increase the heat for a minute or longer, stirring the whole time. We left ours to boil for 3 minutes. The longer you leave it, the darker your caramel will get. And then remove from the heat and leave your caramel to cool down for about 1 minute. By now, your biscuit base should be completely cooled down and ready for you to pour the hot caramel over. And the best thing to do is to pour this right in the middle of the biscuit. Gently tilt your pan to get a lovely even coating of caramel, and then leave this for as long as it takes for the caramel to completely cool down to room temperature. Ours took about half an hour. And when your caramel layer has cooled down completely, it's time to finish this off with a top layer of chocolate. So melt your chocolate in a heatproof bowl over boiling hot water. And then, as we did with the caramel layer, pour the melted chocolate right into the middle of the pan. And as before, tilt the pan so you get a nice even coating of the chocolate on top of the caramel layer. Set this aside again for about 1 hour until the chocolate layer has almost completely set, and just before it's set, score the top into portions using a sharp knife. The recipe says that this makes 30 portions, but we think they've cut them into larger slices and we'll be doing the same. We got 16 squares out of ours. Very carefully cut all the way down along the lines that you've made, and then remove your cakes from the tin. Now your Millionaire's shortbreads, or caramel cakes according to this recipe, are ready to eat. They are so easy to make, so scrumptious and very portable. We've taken a slice each to work this week. It's a great modern historic recipe to make that will transport you straight back to the 1970s. We hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please leave us a like, and if you're interested in seeing us recreate more antique recipes, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also find full instructions for this recipe and many more on our website, linked in the description box below.